am the youngest, so I've had the opportunity to learn from my older sister's choices, whether they be good or bad. Because of this, I've noticed it's so easy for me to identify with people from the Bible, and my favorite person is Paul, because he was a part of one of the most extraordinary movements for God, and I believe that another one is about to make its appearance. And I want to be a part of it. So I'm going to read from Acts 17, verse 16. It says here, while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. It continues to say in verse 22, Paul then stood up in the meeting of Areopagus and said, Men of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I've walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. Now what you worship as something unknown, I'm going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands. He is not served by human hands, as if he needed anything, because he himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. There are three things that I think we can learn from Paul in this passage so that we all can be a part of this extraordinary movement. And the first, brokenness. It says that Paul was greatly distressed. Distressed. That word has so much emotion. It's a great pain, a sorrow, troubled, a brokenness, if you will. A similar passage in Luke 19, verse 41, says, talking about Jesus, says that as he approached Jerusalem and saw the city, he wept over it. Jesus and Paul were both broken over a city. That challenged me. Am I broken over my city? Are you broken over your city? But Paul was broken because of what he saw in the city. Which brings me to my second point. We need to begin to identify the idols in our cities. Paul did that in his. He even notes that they have an altar inscribed to an unknown God. He saw that the people of Athens were so willing to devote themselves to something, even when it wasn't responding to them. That's still happening today. What's our inscription? What's our unknown God? I believe it's music and love. Because when I turn my radio on to a secular station, every song I hear is about love. Whether it's the journey to it, once you're in it, or the heartbreak after it. Our generation is crying out for a love. We've accepted the heartbreak after love as normal. That's not love. God's love. Paul identified that in his generation as well. So he decided to do something about it. Which brings me to my third point. We need to speak boldly the love of God to our friends and our families. Paul was willing to do that to the Athenians. He saw that they were desperately searching for something, so he decided to give it to them. Now let me introduce you to someone who I find incredibly bold, much like Paul. And we're going to call her Anna. Now Anna lived in Saudi Arabia. And after converting to Christianity, she decided she was going to do something bold for God. She was going to tell her Muslim parents about God's love. Once she finished telling them about how Jesus died on the cross so they could live a life of freedom and enter an eternal love, her own father tortured and brutally murdered her. Anna was bold. She knew every risk that she was taking when she told her parents about God's love, but she was willing to take them because she knew that they needed to know about the love of God more than she needed to be alive. So she set her life aside. When are you going to start setting your life aside? Will it be when you see your friends give into what the world calls love? Or when you see them getting drunk? How about when you see scars on their arms or the back of their legs? Because they're at home at night in so much pain that they just need to control it for a second. Or because they just need to remember they're still alive. But why should we wait for them? That's not when extraordinary movements of God happen. It's when we stand up and take the first stance. It's when we're the first ones to say something. So I invite you to be a part of this extraordinary movement. Get broken for our cities. Speak boldly the love of God. Identify idols in it. Come on.